A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra My Pillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic My Pillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen size My Pillow for just $18.88. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use My Pillows for only $9.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size My Pillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
With breaking news and political commentary from a public servant, serial entrepreneur, community leader, philanthropist, and American patriot, and a darn nice guy, it's time for the GrassRoots TruthCast and your host, Gene Valentino.
Hi, friends. Gene Valentino, and welcome back to another episode of our GrassRoots TruthCast. We've put together about 8-9 segments with our friend Nanda Bhagi. He's a true American patriot. He came to the United States as an immigrant, legally became an American citizen, and has more appreciation than most natives for what America has to offer. He's part of a system where he grew from it in the schooling and his innovations in technology and AI. He worked for Fortune 500 companies where he raised over $100 million in sales opportunities. Nanda Bhagi, I see you on my screen. Welcome to another episode of GrassRoots TruthCast.
Thank you, Gene, for having me. It's a great honor to be on your show once again. So the most important...
Let's bring together gender equality issues and taxes. I know they're two separate topics, but in the interest of time, in the next 10 minutes, let's start with the gender equality issues, both domestically here at home and how we see things in the streets, in the neighborhoods, in the schools, and what we've witnessed more recently in the Olympics. Take it from there, and I'll jump in.
Thank you, Gene. So gender equality, again, as humans, we try our best to have equality irrespective of gender, irrespective of race, irrespective of ethnicity. We try all our policies to minimize the impact, but at the same time, again, now we are creating a new dimension, a gender, a subgender within the genders, or the converting one gender to another gender. Yes, all that is, individual choices. But when you look at all the choices that we make, those are all 1%, not majority. For that 1%, we should not have policies, or we should not have a mechanism to harass 99% people who are either male or female. They know their limitations. They want to focus on their lives. They want to focus on their families, on their jobs. That's the case of 99% of Americans. Yes, there are 1% exceptions for whatever reasons, but this gender equality comes into play, and all the policies to protect their interests, provide enough opportunities. But at the end, the equality should be at a pay level. For example, let's say there is a woman CEO for a company, and whatever she's paid is equivalent to same amount a male CEO gets. So we need to keep that equality at the level of challenges any role has to do, and the deliverables. Basically, as big companies, they have a base pay, and then performance pay, and then bonus. So all that things break down. Again, you cannot have all components based on gender. Your base salary can be based on gender, only because irrespective of genders, they'll get the same money. But the performance and the bonus, all that, what kind of results they deliver to the company, what kind of returns they deliver to the stakeholders. So there are different things. So we cannot, have an argument, at all levels. So the policies also should make sure there is no discrimination because of gender. Somebody, getting into a executive role just because he's a male or she's a female, including the president job. If today we have a male and female fighting for, you know, or representing to become the U.S. president. So we cannot vote because of gender. If somebody thinks Kamala Harris being a female, she has done excellent job, yes, please go and vote. But look at, before you go vote for her, make sure you visit cities of California, especially LA and San Francisco, and then look at the pictures, videos from 80s and 90s, and compare her track record as a AG, Attorney General for State. Compare her track record as a border security Kazar. What she has done in the 3.5 years is only one role. Don't vote based on the genders, because what she has done on the performance, on the job, what she has delivered to the state, what she has delivered to the country as a vice president. Look at her achievements. Look at her. Don't go by sweet talk. People are blinded by talks, and the talks get into their feelings, and then because of that feeling they vote. Don't get hatred towards one person just because they said something wrong. Again,
Well,
as a my per-
yeah, here, let's back it up a second. One thing that bothers me even more is the gender inequality that's being proposed in the school systems at a much earlier age. When in certain jurisdictions in this nation, you have people with young boys going into their men's room with tampon machines on the wall, I think to me is the biggest disgrace and a massacre of gender identification that's going on. It's going on at the elementary school level. I have obviously less blame for the individual at that age who's impressionable and still trying to form his or her own identity. My concern is what the hell's going on with the parents in the school system that have allowed this to happen in the first place? How do you see this?
No, that's what the parents are the representation of God. The parents' love. No government, no individual can replace a mother's love and a father's love. That's the bottom line. So here, the parents have the rights to upbring their kid from age 1 to 18 or until they become independent. So, but we as a government, we are trying to get or elect a vice president who has put the gender, rights even given to a 5-year-old kid. Even basically a 5-year-old kid can get to decide whether he want to become some gender change. How can a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old or even a 17-year-old can decide these kind of big decisions?
We have restrictions on their driving and drinking, and here we are letting them mutilate their body at under 10 years of age. This to me is sheer insanity.
Exactly. We have, see, even to get into a bar, we check for ID, make sure the person walking in is 21 years or above. Before serving the drinks, we check the ID, making sure the age is there. Before making sure somebody drives a car, we are checking the age. And before flying a plane, we are checking the pilot if he's, having the license, and if he has the, no drinking within the last 2 hours. When we can check all this, why we can't check for our politicians? Because the biggest difference between the two party leaders who are contesting to be the next president, on one side we have an attorney general who has convicted more than 1,500 people for taking weed, and when she was asked whether she takes weed, she just laughed and walked away. So that's a kind of a person who cannot lead by example, and she can take the weed at her will, but on her job she penalized 1,500 people plus. And then she went ahead and somebody who criminal offense in Minnesota, that lady, she raised fund to support a criminal to save and get a bail. And then we have this VP who has served in US Army when he got the deployment into Iraq. instead of going after 20 years of service, instead of choosing to go for that combat war in Afghanistan, he basically chose to become he basically chose to become the US congressman. So the point is, we need to have people who can represent and keep our communities, keep our cities safe, not like trying to destabilize our systems or drop these criminals into safe neighborhoods.
Yeah, and we didn't even get into DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we'll have to pass on that right now because it's just, I think this is where the woke deep state is really distracting us, diverting us, and deflecting our attention onto these sidebar issues as they come in the side door to take control of this nation with more serious influences with our elected official and with our economy. And speaking of the economy and what touches the economy, taxes. Take it from here on taxes. If you could have it perfectly your way, describe for me the tax policy you're going to give Donald Trump.
Yeah, the taxes, as you know, the taxes are the fundamental things to run a government, and the system is there for a long. And we have taxes at multiple levels. We have at the federal level, at the state level, at the city level, and there are the company level. There are payroll taxes and social security taxes, and also there are taxes on the tip wages, which our Vice President Kamala Harris did a tiebreaker to hire 88,000 IRS agents and to go after our legal citizens who earn their living, doing all the hard work and effort. So we need to make sure the tax policy which will favor a business and give the incentives for business owners to hire more people and to invest more money. So
I've come to the conclusion, Nanda, that because of the self-indulgence going on with many of our politicians, and I regret to admit the corruption that exists with some of these guys that are just self-feeding, if you will. They pass a law on a certain company, regardless of the industry, and slip word to a buddy to go buy some stock in that company when the price is undervalued, knowing fully well government's going to inject money into that company. The price of that stock goes up because of government injection of funds. Is to me misuse of money. What I would like to see, and I'd be very interested in your tax opinion on this, not only the term limits idea, which they should all be held to, and I say that regrettably because I was an elected official locally as a county commissioner for 2 terms, 8 years. And at the time, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't too hot about term limits. I am now. But what about the idea, as it pertains to taxes, of getting an incentive in place for an elected official to move money toward the industries of the world? Lee Iacocca, who back in the 1970s was looking for money, tax money from the United States government to help save his business, but he paid that money back. What about other tax money to businesses? Government's role, get in, stimulate the company, but get the hell out and stay out and let private enterprise run and drive the marketplace, is to me good economics. And it incentivizes the right pay scales, the right motivations from the business owners. And whether it's a loan from government, like a student loan, or a grant from government, like a grant or an allotment, these incentives should be there for the government to help stimulate an economy, not be used to underwrite some reason for the employee to stay at home on the couch. Can you explain that role of incentivizing business for me?
Sure. So every business, as every business has principals and owners and shareholders, and no business can assure anybody 100% success. There is a risk element involved in business, and that's where government has to put some budget, put some sectors, put some cash to subsidize the business for their growth, and depending on some criteria, either hiring more people, more American citizens, or generating more income and paying the payroll taxes or other kind of taxes. So they need to compensate, and that will drive the business owners to put and invest more money and more time. So the taxes, if you look at the policies, Trump has already covered few things. He removed, or he promised to remove, the taxes on the tips, which we all know there are 20 plus million service workers in this country. And these service workers, that means they work on a $3 an hour or a $5 an hour. Whatever the tip they get, that should be tax free. It doesn't make any sense to put a tax on their tips because they worked hard, and that should not be the way to make money for the government, because especially when we can put a 66 billion for illegals and 150 billion for war funding and another 150 billion for war weapons and of mass destruction, when we can put another 100 billion as a humanitarian aid to one group of people, when we can do these billions of donations, we could not tax on our own 20 million people who are working a 8 to 10 hour job, multiple jobs, and try to take advantage of them. And I would like to add few things. We have 15 million plus single moms, so we can help these single moms having a 0% credit card and 0% home loan and a 0% car loan. It can be 1 year 0% or 2 years, that each institution can decide. But as a policy, I would even recommend President Trump to address these major demographics or major groups. Number one is senior citizens. He already announced, we have 27% of senior citizens in the country. And these 27%, they already worked hard and they saved money in their social security. They should not be paying again another tax while withdrawing that money. That's number one. So that covers almost 27% of the people. Now, after that, single moms, give some incentives and benefits for single moms. And then kids, we have 10 million new voters from age group 18 to 21. So obviously, all this group have some level of student loans or some kind of financial difficulties. So create incentives and at least postpone their payments after they get a job or after 5 years or 10 years. If we do the tax system in such a way which can help the government to make the money and help the people to enjoy their life and minimize the taxes and even eliminate the complete national debt. I can write a book on this, how to eliminate a $35 trillion national debt in less than 3 terms. That means 12 years. We have those things. As long as we can implement those policies within our tax system, we can, because I'll give you a simple example. We make almost 50 plus billion by selling drinks, drunk driving accident, and the total liquor sales in this country is about 600 to 700 billions. If we can put 1% or less than 1% for drunk driving, we can save $50 billion. That means if you put 5 billion towards smart rides or zero drunk driving rides, which will save lives about 16,000, which will basically create incentives for drinkers not to drive after a drink. They can take a discount or free rides. So again, the tax system has to be changed and upgraded to the current levels and help all the people, like people, business people, single moms, or senior citizens, youth, and innovators. If somebody has an innovation, and it is obviously we have national sciences, they can do the checks, and if it is good, then invest in that and give the incentive to them to make it a product and go about it.
We've been talking with Nanda Bhagi, who has presented to us many innovations. We've been focusing specifically on taxes in this segment number 6. And when we return, we're going to talk about sports, music, and competition from a guy who was the former global head of business for Triton Cellular USA. Cellular, listen to me, I'm in the cellular industry. Triton, a global head for Triton Solar USA, a nano-lithium polymer a battery manufacturing company. Yeah, we could have spent some time talking about that. If we're going electric and going to get away from China, the least we could do is find our batteries outside of China. Maybe we will touch that issue in our next segment, segment number 7, with Nanda Bhagi right after this message.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. Be sure to like and subscribe, and God bless America.